The Triangle Shirtwaist factory fire occurred on March 25, 1911, and was the deadliest industrial disaster in New York City history. The factory was owned by Max Blank and Isaac Harris, and located on the 8th, 9th, and 10th floors of a building then known as the Ash Building. It was a garment factory, primarily producing women's blouses, called shirtwaists. No one truly knows how it began, but it is theorized that the fire was most likely started when an unextinguished cigarette was dropped into a bin of scrap fabric. The building had experienced 4 recent fires and had been reported by the fire department to the building department as unsafe in account of the insufficiency of its exits. The building itself was of the most modern construction and classed as fireproof. What burned so quickly and disastrously for the victims were shirtwaists. Fires were not uncommon in garment factories, and normally there were buckets of water at the ready for when these small flames would occur. According to some survivors, these buckets were empty the day the Triangle factory caught ablaze.
As he came near us on that fateful day, one girl asked him, "Mr. Bonstein, why is there no water in the buckets? In case of a fire, there would be nothing with which to fight it." He became enraged at our group of Price Committee members, and with inhuman anger replied,
"If you'll burn, there'll be something to put out the fire."
The flames erupted on the 8th floor. Luckily, someone was able to call up to the 10th floor to warn them of the blaze. Blank and Harris, along with many others from the 10th floor, were able to escape to the roof, and from there, onto the roof of a nearby building. Less fortunately, there was no phone on the 9th floor. The workers on this level were only notified of the emergency once they saw the flames themselves, and by that time, it was too late for many of them. The door to the stairwell was locked from the outside, and the foreman who held the key was long gone, escaped down to the street. The doors to the factory floor had been locked to prevent workers from stealing and taking unauthorized breaks, but this proved to be a key reason for many of the deaths that occurred on this day. At Triangle, there had been a warning. In 1909, when the firm was adding to its insurance coverage, P.J. McKeon, an expert and lecturer on fire prevention at Columbia University, was commissioned to make an inspection of the shop. He was concerned immediately with the crowding of so many people onto the top 3 floors of the building. Upon inquiring, he learned that the firm had never held a fire drill. He noted that without previous instruction on how to handle themselves in such an emergency, a fire would panic the girls. McKeon found that the door to the Washington Place stairway was usually kept locked, and was told this was because it was difficult to keep track of so many girls. He thought he had impressed management with the need to hold fire drills. No drills were ever held at the Triangle factory, and perhaps had they been, fewer lives may have been lost that day. The singular fire escape collapsed under the weight of too many workers attempting to evacuate, falling nearly 100 feet to the streets below. Many chose to jump out of the windows rather than perish in the blaze, and nearly all of them were killed instantly upon hitting the sidewalk. Oftentimes, when a clothing item went out of fashion, fires would be started purposefully so that the owners of the company could collect insurance money instead of trying to sell their outdated items. Shirtwaists were indeed going out of style by 1911, but the fire was deemed not to be arson. The number of casualties added up to 146 people, 123 women and girls, and 23 men. The majority of these individuals were Italian and Jewish immigrants in their teens and early 20s, the youngest known victims being only 14 years old. In the days following, 400,000 New Yorkers took to the streets to show their support for the victims of the fire. Public outrage forced government action, and in the next 3 years, 36 state laws regulating fire safety and working conditions were passed in New York. Isaac Harris and Max Blank were tried for manslaughter and acquitted, and just 2 years later, in 1913, Blank was arrested for locking the doors to his factory during working hours yet again. He was fined the minimum for this crime, just $20. Previous to the fire's occurrence, workers had already been protesting and unionizing to improve poor working conditions. Just 2 years prior was the 1909 uprising of 20,000, which started with women from Triangle walking out and grew to, hence the name, 20,000 strikers across the city, majority being female garment workers. While it is rare we hear of a terrible event such as this happening in the United States nowadays, garment factories across the world still experience tragedies like this regularly. Notably, there is the Rana Plaza tragedy of 2013, where a garment factory building in Bangladesh collapsed, killing more than 1,100 people. This is the most deadly industrial disaster in history, but every year, dozens of garment workers across the world are killed and hundreds more are injured in fires, floods, and building collapses. Cheap clothing may not come at too high of a fiscal cost, but it is important now more than ever to remember the moral and ethical price we pay for clothing.